glad you're here. Glad to see some familiar faces. Glad you're here watching online. It's been a crazy holiday. I've been gone for a while, so I'm glad to be back. And Sunday morning's always sort of a reset for me. God, we ask that you come and just be with us this morning, whatever that means. That you speak to us. I want to feel you. I want to be with you. One of the ways we do that is just by being honest. And I know in the busyness of things, sometimes feeling the presence of God can be difficult to find. So this first song is a psalm that it's taken from a song that David wrote in Psalms. Just being honest with God. How long till I feel you? How long till I know that you're near? Just another way of asking God, we want you to come, we want you to be with us. How long will you turn your face away? How long do you hear me when I pray? On and on, still I walk this pilgrim way. How long? How long till your children find the rest? How long till you draw them to your breast? We go on, holding to your promises. How long till you wipe away the tears from every eye? Till we see our home descending from the sky? Do we wait in vain? Jesus, give us hope again. Jesus, give us hope again. How long till your words will still the storm? How long till you bear your mighty arm? How long till you snatch me from the thorns? How long till you wipe away the tears from every eye? Till we see our home descending from the sky? Do we wait in vain? But Jesus, give me hope again. Jesus, give me hope again. How long, sweet the dawn ends the race? How long, weak hearts but strong our legs, looking on create that cloud of witnesses. How long? How long? I wanna feel you. I wanna know you deeper. I wanna be changed by you. I want a deeper love, deeper love. So how long? A deeper love. How long? How long? How give me hope again. Jesus, give me hope again. Amen. Amen. Jesus, come. Amen. Jesus, come. Amen. Jesus, come. Amen. Jesus, come. You unravel me with a melody, and you surround me with a song of deliverance from my enemies, till all my fears are gone. I'm no longer a slave to fear, 'cause I am a child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear, 'cause I am a child of God. From my mother's womb, you have chosen me, and your love has called my name. Born again treat you like the dad you are. I don't want to be scared of my future holds. Want to treat you like the dad you are. I want to treat you like the dad you are. I want to see you like the dad you are. And I am surrounded by the arms of my Father. I am surrounded by songs of your deliverance. We are liberated from our bondage of fear and shame. 'Cause we're the sons and daughters. We can sing our freedom, freedom. Oh, oh, oh. Sing our freedom. Oh, oh, oh. Sing your freedom. Oh, oh. Sing your freedom. I'm your child, I am a child of God. I remember growing up in a really sort of guilt and shame-ridden environment. So I said all the words, got baptized, did all the stuff to be a Christian I was told I needed to do. But I wasn't perfect. And I didn't understand everything, and I wasn't sure exactly if I believed everything that was being told. And so there was a part of me that sort of exiled from the rest of the parts of me that really did not believe that I fit in because I was different or because I wasn't perfect. I don't know if you feel that way or if you feel estranged from your physical family in any way, or feel estranged from your spiritual path and like where you belong because you got a lot of questions and some of your stuff is rough around the edges. Well, welcome to the club. It does not discount any one of us from being a child of God. Each one of you here is that. I hope you find comfort in that. I know I do.
I live for the moment I'm still in your presence. All the noise dies down. Lord, speak to me now. You have all my attention. I will linger and listen. I can't miss a thing. Lord, I know my heart wants more of you. My heart wants something new, so I surrender all. So all I want is to live within your love, be undone by who you are. My desire is to know you deeper. Lord, I will open up again, throw my fears into the wind. I am desperate for your touch of heaven. You're the fire in the morning, you're the cool in the evening, the breath in my soul, and you're the life in my bones. And there is no hesitation in your love and affection. It's the sweetest of all. Lord, I know my heart wants more of you. My heart wants something new, so I surrender all. All I want is to live within your love, being done by who you are. My desire is to know you deeper. Lord, I will open up again, throw my fears into the wind. I am desperate for your touch of heaven. Oh,
We'll spend our whole life singing this next line.
I open up my heart to you. I open up my heart to you now. So do what only you can do. Jesus, have your way in me now. I open up my heart to you. I open up my heart to you now. So do what only you can do. Jesus, have your way in me now. I open up my My desire is to know you deeper, Lord. I will open up again and throw my fears into the wind. I am desperate for your touch of heaven. Amen. You may be seated.
Good morning, Riverbend. You have successfully made it through your first week of 2022. How's that feel? Yeah, new year. So some of you have committed to do new things, to try new things. Some of you have committed to have nothing be different. But whichever one is you this morning, you're in the right place. Riverbend is so unique and so special. This church is a great place to try something new, to go a little bit deeper with your faith, to take the next step. And if that's you this morning, we have some things that you could really enjoy and participate in. If you're new to Riverbend or if you just want to learn more about us, today we have Riverbend Essentials right after the service, just at the top of the stairs and out those doors in our lounge. It's a really informal gathering, and it's an opportunity to just chat with people who know about this place, who can share with you our beliefs and our vision. You can ask whatever question you have after the service. Or if you're looking to join us, to go a little bit deeper in community here, next week we have Inside Community Brunch, which was another opportunity right after the service to come by and grab a bite to eat and learn more about all of our different groups. Just before this, I was in women's community group with some of the most incredible women. We had such a great discussion. And I knew I was going to make this announcement, so I was sitting there thinking, I love these people. I love being here. It sets the tone for my entire week. It is always a good time to start. It's always a good time to join. We have new women come in every week. But it's not just my group. There are dozens of these all around campus for every age group, every stage, single, married, older, young, everybody. I encourage you to find your fit. We can walk alongside you in the coming year. As always, we can't do any of this without your generosity and your support. If you want to continue to give or commit to give this coming year, you can do so online or in the black boxes along the mezzanine. Would you join with me in prayer? Father, I just bless this service, and I pray that you would join us in this place. As we learn about what it feels like to rely on faith, to have you in the boat with us, I pray that that courage, that comfort would meet everybody here in this building and online. Would you stir our hearts this morning to find more of you, to take that next step with you? In your name we pray. Amen.
Welcome to 2022. That's it? I mean, the last service, people actually clapped. They were like, yeah. I'm like, whoa. I mean, see, you're more my style. It's kind of like, well, let's see how it goes first. Right now, there's not, let's see how it pans out. Maybe next December we'll go, yeah, 2022 was awesome. But right now, kind kind of stepping back for a second. And I know this is technically the second Sunday of 2022, but I wasn't here last week. I couldn't be here last week because I joined the COVID club. Yeah, it was after Christmas, or Christmas Eve, and the Sunday after Christmas services. It was the Tuesday after Christmas. Came into the office and I thought I had like cedar fever, kind of feeling kind of punk, and Sherry Ford was here and she saw me and she said, you don't look good. I said, well, nice to see you too. But she said, no, you look like you're not feeling well. I said, yeah, it's just cedar fever. She goes, I don't think that's what it is. And she had one of those at-home COVID tests. She had found one. I don't know where she got it, but she had one. She said, you should take it. And I'm like, nah. I ain't afraid of no COVID. I got both shots. Got a booster. I ain't gonna get COVID. She says, you don't look right. You should take it. And I took it, and there it was. It was positive. I had COVID. So Tuesday I go home, and I do the sequester thing, and yeah, I barely got sick. I had like a little fever on Wednesday. Felt kind of lethargic. But by Friday, I took a test and it was negative. And you want to know the most frustrating part of it was my wife never got it. She took tests all week long, never had it. My kids never had it. And they're like, Dad, you're such a wuss. You just had to get the COVID. And I'm like, no, I took COVID for the whole family. That's what I did. I took it all on me. But I got through the COVID, and so I had a week, and I was home, and I was watching lame middle of the day TV. How do people do that? But I was sitting there and I was reflecting, and I thought, well, this really blows. What is this? What is it? Why does this feel so disruptive? Why does this feel so frustrating? Why am I anxious about the last 2 years? And I realized part of it for me is because it just overturned my routine. It upset my rhythms. And I'm a rhythm guy. I'm a routine guy. I like plans. I like having calendars. I like having things that I'm doing. I like schedules. And my wife tells me it's just because I'm insecure. And it may be true, but I don't know about you, but it makes me feel like I have a measure of control. If I know, okay, 6 months from now, I'm going to do this, I'm going to have these things going on, I have these meetings in the next couple of weeks, I got it all planned out, I got a calendar. And then when life happens and things get thrown off schedule or life gets interrupted, I get anxious, I get frustrated, I'm disappointed. It was just my calendar. And COVID is that for 2 years. Just knocked the train off the rails. It's disrupted everything. We know life is full of interruptions and life is full of storms and sometimes those are tragic things. The question is, what do we do? What do we do when life is interrupted? What do we do when tragedy suddenly strikes? What do we do when we find ourselves lost at sea in this storm? So what I thought we would do to begin 2022 is I thought we would take a course in navigating rough seas, take a Coast Guide certified course in foul weather seamanship. And I wanted to do it by looking at a couple of stories from the life of Jesus where his disciples found themselves in the middle of the sea, in the middle of a storm. And how did they see Jesus in the storm? Because it's not just a lesson in maritime navigation, it's a lesson in real-time survival, because we're all going to be in the storm. We're all familiar with the interruptions. But who is Jesus to us when our boat is taking on water and we are lost at sea? But before we begin the curriculum of maritime navigation in rough seas, I'd like to pray. Would you pray with me? Father in heaven, I would ask that the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart would be pleasing in your sight, that you would use your word spoken by your servant and anointed by your Spirit to remind us that you're in the boat with us and you're going to get us to the other side. I pray that we might see you in the storms with us. Pray that for myself, for my family, for all of us here. For I ask that in Jesus' name. Amen. I think we all know that the primary source that we have historically for the story of the life of Jesus comes from 4 different stories, from what we call the 4 Gospels. And you don't have to be a spiritual giant to know the names Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. I think most human beings, most at least Westerners, are familiar with Matthew, Mark, and Luke, and John and the story of Jesus. But have you ever wondered, why are there 4 stories? They couldn't get their act together. Why they couldn't combine them and synthesize them? Why isn't there one story of the life of Jesus? Why are there 4? And I think the primary reason why there are 4 is because each author gives us a slightly different perspective of the most amazing life that was ever lived. It's as if one looks at it from the left, one looks at it from the right, one looks at it from above, and one looks at it from below. And each of the gospel stories has a unique point of view. For example, Matthew's point of view is that Jesus was the promised Messiah king. He was the one that for thousands of years, the people of God had hoped for, had longed for. He said, this is that guy. Mark, on the other hand, has a very different point of view. His point of view is that Jesus was, in fact, not just a humble king, not just a Messiah king, but he was a humble servant. Luke's point of view is different than Matthew and Mark's because he is concerned from a global point of view with, is Jesus like us? Is he a human like us? And Luke's point of view is that Jesus was fully human. Now, John, who is different than the other 3 entirely, these 3 Gospels are called the Synoptic Gospels because much of their information overlaps. John is writing from a totally different point of view, and his point of view is that Jesus was holy God. And each of these authors was focused on a different audience. Matthew was focused on a Jewish audience, on people who were looking for the Messiah, people who were familiar with the law and the promises of God. Mark is more focused on a Roman audience. At the time of the 1st century, 2,000 years ago, in the Roman Empire, 80% of the population of the Roman Empire were people who were property of another human being. They were slaves. And probably virtually everyone else, 18 or 19 more percent of the population, were living day-to-day lives. There were probably only 1 or 2% of the population of the entire Roman world that would be familiar with the lives of independence and autonomy that we take for granted. 95 to 98% of the population of the Roman Empire were people who would identify with a person who was familiar with what it meant to be a slave or a servant. Now, Luke's point of view is directed at the Hellenistic culture. You see, Luke was not one of the 12 disciples. Luke wasn't there. Luke is a historian. Luke is an academic. He is a scholar. And most people believe that Luke accumulated the story of Jesus by interviewing and talking to eyewitnesses like Matthew and Mark and probably the Apostle Peter. And he put together his gospel to address the historical reality of this person named Jesus of Nazareth. John's target is really the universal human condition. His book is written with an idea that people throughout time will need to know what God was like when he walked among us. Now, each of these authors write their story with certain values, certain priorities in telling the story, but to conform to their point of view. For example, Matthew quotes more Old Testament prophecies. He quotes 53 Old Testament prophecies, more than any of the other gospel writers. In fact, he makes 76 allusions or references to things that were predicted in the Old Testament 129 times. In Matthew's gospel, the life of Jesus is connected to what was predicted in the Hebrew Bible. In fact, Matthew uses a term 22 times that appears in none of the other gospels. He calls Jesus the King of Heaven. Mark is, and the key verse in Matthew, is Matthew chapter 20. Is it 25 or 20? Yeah, 20 verse 5, where he quotes the prophet Isaiah 62, in the triumphal entry on Palm Sunday. He says, Isaiah predicted this moment. He said, that is your king. Now, Mark's point of view is that of a humble servant. And in portraying a humble servant, you don't care what a servant says. You care what a servant does. That's why at the center of Mark's gospel are 18 of the 35 miracles of Jesus. Or it could be 20 of the 37, depends on how you count them. And that may not seem like a lot. It's just about half of the miracles that are recorded in all the Gospels. But what's interesting is he only records 18 of 70 of the parables or illustrations that Jesus taught in the other Gospels. See, Mark is not concerned with what Jesus said. He's focusing on what Jesus did, because that's what a servant is. In fact, the key verse in the book of Mark is Mark chapter 10, verse 45. Mark 10:45 says that the Son of Man did not come to serve or to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. Luke, as the historian, Luke as the collator of the history of Jesus and the history of the early church, Luke also wrote the book of Acts. If you combine Luke and Acts, Luke actually wrote over half of the New Testament. But the book of Luke is a historical compilation. Luke's book is chronological and historical. And it's worth noting that only 7% of the book of Luke is unique. 93% of Luke's story is also contained in Matthew, Mark, and John. Luke's key verse is in Luke chapter 19. In Luke chapter 19, verse 10, he says, the Son of Man came to seek and to save those who were lost. It was his mission, it was his purpose. As a human being, this was his purpose in life. John, interestingly enough, is not chronological and historical. He writes topically. He builds his story around 7 profound I am statements that Jesus makes. I am the bread of life. I am the living water. I am the light of the world. I am the way, the truth, and the life. I am the good shepherd. 7 I am statements and 8 miracles, 6 of which are unique to the book of John. Only 2 are shared with the other gospel writers. He doesn't write chronologically, he writes topically and theologically. And 92% of the book of John is unique to John. Only 8% is shared with Matthew and Mark and Luke. And we know exactly why John wrote the book of John. He tells us in John chapter 20, verse 31. He says, I have written these things so that you might believe that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God, and by believing, you might have life in his name. You see, each one of these is a different perspective. It's like walking around an individual and seeing them from different points of view. And there are two stories that are contained in the gospel record about Jesus on the Sea of Galilee in a storm with his disciples. The first story is the story of Jesus calming the sea, and it's in Matthew chapter 8, and in Mark chapter 4, and in Luke chapter 8. The second story is the story where Jesus comes to his disciples in the rough seas, walking on the water. It's in Matthew chapter 14, and in Mark chapter 6, and in John chapter 6. And in the coming weeks, we're going to talk about why Luke doesn't tell the story of the walking on the water, and why John doesn't tell the story of the calming of the sea. But today, I want to get a lesson. I want to share a lesson in navigating the storms of life. How do we see Jesus when our boat is being swamped? By looking at the story of the calming of the sea. Matthew records it for us in Matthew chapter 8. It follows immediately after the story of the feeding of the 5,000. In Matthew chapter 8, verse 23, it says that Jesus got his disciples together and they got in a boat and they set out across the Sea of Galilee, across the lake Gennesaret. They made their way across the sea. And at some point, Matthew doesn't make it plain when it was, but perhaps when they were far from shore, a violent, ferocious storm stirred up the sea. And the sea was so agitated that the wind was pushing the waves over the sides of the boat. And this was terrifying to the disciples, which it really is kind of shocking because a number of the disciples were professional fishermen. They had been raised by fishing on the Sea of Galilee. Their fathers were fishermen, and their fathers before them, and their fathers before them. They had seen storms before. But the language indicates that this was almost tornadic as a tempest. It was a storm like they had never seen before. And interestingly enough, all three of the gospel writers say Jesus was asleep in the boat in the middle of the storm. Matthew says that in their panic, the disciples woke Jesus up and shouted at him, "Lord, save us. We're going to drown." Jesus wakes up and he responds to his disciples by going, "You big babies, what is going, you of little faith? Why is your faith so small, not in quantity, but so limited in its application and in its understanding? Why do you have such little faith?" And then it says he commanded the wind and the waves. And the miracle wasn't that the storm stopped. I mean, you could understand if you've been around Texas any amount of time, you know that there are storms that kind of brew up and rain themselves out and go away. And if you timed it right, you could stand up and say, "Storm be gone," and the rain would stop. And moments later, the sun shines and you're like, "Ooh, that's impressive." But the miracle was that suddenly, almost instantly, the water went calm. Water doesn't behave that way. When a sea is stirred up, the waves take a while to diminish in their intensity. But all of the gospel authors note that almost instantly, the sea went from a torment to glass. The disciples saw this and they were amazed. And they said, "Who is this guy? Who is this one whom even the wind and the waves obey?" Because they were familiar with the stories of the prophets who had command over nature. And they were certainly familiar with the story of Moses who parted the Red Sea. But it was clear that the prophets and Moses did this because they asked God to do it. Jesus simply spoke it and it happened. He didn't pray. He didn't think about it. He didn't ask God to do it. He did it. Now, Mark and Luke tell basically the same story as Matthew, except there are a number of idiosyncratic differences. And it's in these different points of view that we get a better understanding of how we can see Jesus in our boat in the storm. The first difference is at the very beginning of the story. At the very beginning of the story, they all set this in a time frame right after the feeding of the 5,000. Matthew simply says, Jesus got in the boat with his disciples and they set out across the lake. But Mark adds that it was in the evening. It was at the end of the day when they got into the boat. And both Mark and Luke note that Jesus said, let's get into the boat and go across to the other side. Now, you may not realize this, but that is preaching gold right there. That will preach all day long. In fact, I've actually preached it here at Riverbend before because it goes something like this. Jesus was standing there and he said, let's get into the boat. And you know what he didn't say? He didn't say, let's go out into the middle of the lake and drown. He didn't say, let's get into the boat and see how good a swimmer you guys are. Let's get into the boat and let's see how long you can tread water. No, he said, let's get in the boat and let's go to the other side of the lake. You understand what preaching gold is? Preaching gold is, he's saying that to us, brothers and sisters. He's telling us, he's in the boat with us, and he's telling us he's going to get us to the other side. There is no storm. There is no torment. There is no tragedy that is too great that is going to sink your boat because he promises to get us to the other side. He said, let's go to the other side. He didn't say, let's go out and drown. Let's go out and take a swimming test. Let's go out and tread water. He said, let's get to the other side. See how it works? That's preaching gold. But the question is, why doesn't Matthew tell it? Why did he leave it out? Now, it's possible that he didn't hear it. Maybe he was over talking to somebody else and he didn't hear Jesus say, let's go to the other side. It's possible that Luke heard it from Mark and Mark heard it because he was next to him, or Peter heard it because Peter and Mark were standing there, or maybe Matthew just forgot it. Maybe he heard it and didn't remember it. Or maybe, and here's the idea I like, maybe he didn't put it in there because kings don't have to tell you those things. King doesn't have to say when he sits down at the table, I'm here to eat. You should know he's the king. When he sits at the table, bring the food. He doesn't have to say when I get into the boat, we're going to the other side. You just know that's what kings do. It is the prerogative of his position. And maybe Matthew is emphasizing that by saying he didn't even have to say, let's go to the other side. He just got in the boat and they knew to go. Now, I can't prove that. Just like the idea that Matthew is giving us that extra measure of a glimpse into his authority, of how influential he was in the lives of his disciples. The second thing that's different is near the end. After the sea is calmed, each of the disciples, or each of the authors, record the disciples reacting differently. Matthew says that after the sea was calm, that the disciples were amazed. The word is thaumazo, and it means to be in awe of, to be in wonder, to gaze with this sense of, this is beyond anything I've ever seen. It's awesome. It's amazing. It's the idea that we look for when we want an experience with God. It's like, oh, that just blew me away. Made the hair stand up on the back of my neck. But that's not what Mark says. Mark says almost the opposite. Mark says when they saw how the seas grew instantly calm, he says they were absolutely terrified. The Greek word for fear is phobos, from which we get phobia. He says it twice. He uses two forms of the word phobos, and then he adds to it. It's like they were so afraid, they were frightened of their fear, and then he adds the word mega to it. They were mega scared. In our colloquial language, he was saying they were scared like when you can't control your digestive tract anymore. Don't act like you don't know what I'm talking about. I was scared to where I involuntarily evacuated myself. Well, that's how you could not possibly be more scared. How different is that from being in awe? One author says the disciples were in awe and they were worshiping, and the other says they were terrified, they were anxious, they were angry. They were so frightened they didn't know what to do. Luke, who's compiling all of it, says both. Luke uses the word thaumazo and phobos. He says they were amazed and frightened. You know, there's something that we do, and I think we do it unintentionally, is we establish an emotional protocol for our experience with God. We say, I'm supposed to feel this when I'm in church, or I'm supposed to feel this when I worship, or I'm supposed to feel this when I read the Bible, and we establish these emotional expectations like everyone feels exactly the same way in exactly the same circumstances. And what we get is this glimpse of this idea that no, there's no protocol for that. You feel what you feel. On the spectrum from fear to awe, you feel one or the other or both or anything in between. It's okay. There is no prescription, there is no box into which our experience with God fits every time for every person in every circumstance. And we get a clue into that when we see that each of these gospel authors records a different sort of take on what that experience produced in each of those disciples. But the most interesting difference is in the middle of the story where they wake Jesus up, because it gives us an insight into how they saw Jesus. Who did the disciples think he was in the storm, in the boat? Matthew says that they woke him up saying to him, Lord, save us, we're going to drown. He uses the word kurie, which comes from kurios, which is a sign of authority that is granted, a birthright, a position. A person who is worthy to be called Lord is a person of authority and control and influence. The implication was that they were appealing to his authority in the situation. They were basically saying to him, you have the authority to get us out of this. I don't know how many times when I am in difficult situations, and I know people in difficult situations, we cry out to God. We want God to be for us the fixer, the deliverer, the one who takes control of the situation, who repairs what is broken, who restores what is lost. And sometimes we experience him in the storm as Lord, because he sees us through it in ways that we did not believe were possible. In supernatural ways, he changes the circumstances. He provides us with supernatural strength, and we experience him as Lord. But that's not what Mark says. Mark uses the word didasko, didaskala. It means teacher. They saw him as the teacher, not as a person of privilege, of rank, of authority, someone who had control of the situation, but someone who could explain to them, what do I do? Why is this happening? There are times in the middle of the storm when that's the cry of my heart. The cry of my heart is, God, why is this? Why am I in the middle of this? Why is this happening? What do I need to do to get through this? Teach me, tell me, show me. I need you to be the teacher. Sometimes the circumstances are circumstances that we cannot undo. They are decisions that cannot be undone. They are losses that cannot be restored, not in this life. And the only question we are left with is why? Why? I need you to be the didasko. I need you to be the teacher. But it's the way that Luke addresses it that I find most compelling. He uses the word episata. It's translated master. It's a word that only Luke uses. Luke is the only New Testament author that says that the disciples addressed Jesus as episata. And he amplifies it by saying it twice, Master, Master, save us, we're going to drown. The word episada is the kind of person who we look at and go, I trust that person. I'll follow that person. You see, a Lord is a person who has power and authority because it's their position, it's their birthright. A person who is an episada is a person who earns the respect and is worthy of being followed, of being trusted. An episada is a person who, when you're in the thick of it, in the middle of it, I just want you with me. When the chaos is going on and everyone is confused, they're the person who walks in the room and all of a sudden everybody goes, okay, here we go. They have a presence. They have a strength. They have a courage that they have proven over time. They are trustworthy. They are in control. They are people who we want to be around when life gets harsh. And this is the one who was in the boat with them. He was all Lord and teacher and master. You see, this is why there's 4 perspectives. This is why there's not just a story of Jesus. There are 4 perspectives. There are 4 different points of view. Matthew sees him as the promised king, the Messiah, and Mark sees him as the humble servant. And Luke's point of view is that he's a fully human person, just like you and I. And John's point of view is that no, he is the Word made flesh. He is holy God. And what I think that means is when we are in the storms of life, he is who we need. And it's not dependent on some preconception that Jesus is always this or has to be this. It's what do we need? What do we need in the storm? Do I need a Lord to remove the circumstances? Do I need a teacher to explain to me why? Or do I need a strong, courageous companion in the midst of the storm? He can be all of those and more. See, it shouldn't surprise us. Shouldn't surprise us when the storms in life show up. I don't know why I'm surprised when my life is interrupted. It happens all the time. I don't know why I'm surprised when we're 2 years into COVID and it's like, oh, we're going to be 2 weeks to stop the spread. Okay, wrong. I don't know why I'm surprised that we're just all kind of navigating through the storm, trying to figure it out. The storms and the interruptions and the unpleasantness in life should not surprise us. What should surprise us is the courage and the strength that we can have, knowing that he is who we need, that he is with us, that we are never alone in the struggle. I am always surprised by how God shows up and shows a provision that I hadn't anticipated, or gives me a strength that I didn't think I had. If I'm going to be surprised, I'm going to be surprised by God, not by the interruptions. See, the question isn't will life go off the rails? The question isn't will life be unpleasant? The question isn't will there be storms? It's like C.S. Lewis famously said. He said, we need to stop regarding the unexpected or unpleasant things in life as interruptions of real life. The truth is, the interruptions are real life. You see, the question isn't whether or not life will interrupt us. The question is, will you wake him up in the boat? Will you awaken to his presence in your life, to the resource he wants to be? He can be what you need. And I don't want to put a spiritual Band-Aid on that and walk away and just say it's going to be okay, because it's more substantial than that. See, I don't know. I'm not sure if I will ever be a master of foul weather navigation in life. I am a whiner. I just am. And I'm too old to change. Just ask my wife and kids. Why did I get COVID? Why was it me? Why couldn't my wife have COVID? Why couldn't my kids get COVID? Why was it me that had to have the COVID? Why did I got my booster? I got my shots. Why and I can't. I don't think I'm ever going to change. I'm always going to complain, and I'm always going to be out of sorts. And anxiety is something I'm always going to struggle with when life is interrupted. I'm not sure that I will ever get the Coast Guard certification in foul weather navigating the storms of life. But I am sure of one thing, that I want him in the boat with me. That I want him in the storm, in the boat with me. And I'll take whatever he's willing to give me to get me through to the other side. Welcome aboard, sailor. Welcome to 2022.
Sailing, take me away to where I've always heard it could be. Sailing, take me away to where I've always heard it could be. I have this hope. There's an anchor for my soul. Through every storm, I will hold you with endless love. All my fears swept away. In everything, I will trust in you. There is hope in the promise of the cross. You gave everything to save the world you love. And this hope is the anchor for my soul. My God, you stand unshakable, unshakable. I'll change you are, who was and is to come. You promise sure you will not let go. Well, there is hope in the promise of the cross. You gave everything to save the world you love. And this hope is the anchor for my soul. dream the wind will carry me, and soon I will be free. Through many dangers, toils, and snares, I have already come. It was your grace that brought me safe thus far, and grace will lead me home, and your grace will lead me home. It will lead me home. Yeah, 'cause your name is higher, your name is greater, and all mine is in you. And your word unfailing, your promise unshaken, and all mine is in you. You lead me home. May you see God in your day today, your week, your unexpecteds, your hard times and your good times. You guys go in peace. We'll see y'all next Sunday.